Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today and joining in on another Serious Angler podcast. Today is just me, the co host, Captain Andrew Full, episode 236. So, everyone who is listening and has listened to this point, thank you for your viewership. It is greatly appreciated. So, fun little episode for you guys here today, little podcast. We're going to discuss fall Great Lakes techniques. So we're going to cover some crankbaiting all the way to football jigs and drop shot nets, etc. I have some of the baits with me. Some of them are in my boat, and it is pouring right now as I am recording this. So I apologize that I can't give a visual reference for everything. But it's just me today because Bailey is currently up fishing the St. Lawrence Bassmaster Open, and Deacon is there as well, as we covered on our Monday Night Live. And if you tuned in the last Friday, I do believe Bailey gave a little reference to to that as well. So I apologize that you're stuck with my bearded face today, but I think this will be a fun one. I hope everybody takes a little bit away from it. And also, side note, I believe Bailey is sitting right now currently in the money cut. So I hope he finishes out this derby strong, and best of luck to him. So first, one of my favorite techniques to do in the fall time, which I don't have handy with me currently for smallmouth, is an Alabama rig. And that's because you can cover a ton of water with it. It's a meat and potatoes deal. You're going to be looking for flats. So when I say flats, I'm talking about shallow, shallow water close, deep water not too far away, kind of tapers out, and then you'll get a flat spot in like let's call it 8 to 14 foot of water would be the money zone for me when I'm fishing an Alabama rig. One of the baits that I do like to run on it is a 3.3 Kitech. There's quite a few different colors that I've found to be very productive. AU, light hitch, bluegill flash, all great colors. You can vary the heads from a 16th ounce on 5. In New York State, we're allowed to have 5 hook points on our Alabama rig. So we're able to, catch up to 5 fish at one time, which is kind of cool. I haven't witnessed that yet. I have had 2 or 3 on it once. Usually they come off because when we're fishing the A rig, we're fishing it on flats in current. It's one of my favorite ways to catch them. I recently learned how to throw it last fall. Kudos to my buddy Justin Warner for teaching me how to throw an A rig, and I can say that it might be my favorite technique come fall. So, 2 A rigs that I do really like. The first one is a Yum Flash Mob Junior. That one is great. Second would be Brown Dog Tackle. They're out of New York State. That's an amazing A rig. If anybody knows who Larry Mazer is, they know that he posts about the brown the brown dog A rig all the time. So, a couple side notes here, kind of give you a little bit of tinkering for your brain, light bulbs to make your A rig a little better. You can buy what you'd want to do with that Flash Mob Junior is upgrade the terminal on it. So the split rings and the swivel snaps. Owner makes really good ones for that. I don't have them handy. Like I said, they're all in my boat, so I apologize for that. Jig heads that I like to use on the A rig are just a standard ball head lead. Don't need them flashy painted. I do use super glue for all of my baits. Rod is going to be a 7'7" Phoenix Feather heavy with a Shimano Corrado K200 size with 20-pound fluoro. So when you hear A rig or you research A rigs, you'll always find that guys will be like, throw them on braid, throw them on fluoro, this or that. It's personal preference. Great Lakes, clear water. I'm going fluoro all day. It just makes sense. Yeah, it's this big shiny chandelier thing with these metal wires, but I just feel like that fluoro comes through the better, and the fluoro comes through the water a little better for whatever reason than braid. It helps get the bait down and hover as opposed to where braid floats. So you could, with that current, can get caught up and not have your A rig track right. This is my personal opinion. I could be wrong. So put down in the comments or whatever, message me, let me know what you think. I love to hear everybody's opinion. Next, bait that I like to throw in the fall if I'm struggling to get bit is going to be a queen tackle finesse football jig. As you know, all of our podcasts are presented by Queen Tackle. I firmly believe in them. Bailey believes in them. They're great baits. This color is just goby. As you can see, it's got a little bit of purple in it. Purple is great for smallmouth. This one's fresh out of the pack, so I haven't trimmed it. I trim all of my jigs up, so it fits the profile I want. If they're eating a bigger forage, I might leave it a little longer. If they want something really dubbed down or I want to get down in the water quicker, I'll trim up the skirt and make it more of a finesse style. So fully customizable. They smell great. Coffee, love it. Trailers that I'll put on it in the fall, there's only two: Rage Chunk and some type of swim bait, Spark Shad, Kitech, and that like 2.8 size or 3-inch, just so you get a goby imitation. This is when they're really sucked to the bottom. They're moving extremely slow. You're just looking to get a couple bites. A football jig is a great way to do that. From the football jig, another really good fall bait, as everybody has fallen in love with over the last few years, would be a Ned Rig. I tend to go lighter in the fall than what I do in the summer. I'm a proponent of a heavy Ned Rig. I like 3/8 ounce, 5/16. In the fall, I want it to slow down a little bit because, yeah, they're feeding fast, but if I can't get them to eat that reactionary bait, they might be in a weird mood. Like, sometimes randomly in October, you'll be out there on a 74 and sunny, slick, calm day, and they don't want to chase for anything. They're just hunkered down. They don't know what the heck's going on. They're like, should be cold, but it's really hot. The water's cold. I don't want to move, but they still got to eat. That's when I'm going to go to the Ned Rig. My favorite rod to throw it on is my 7'2" medium extra fast tip gray blank Kumara. I've talked about that rod probably 400 times to this point. 10-pound braid on it to a 6-pound Gamma Edge or Gamma Touch fluorocarbon leader, depending on what I'm fishing. If there's a lot of rock or if it's sand. If it's rock, I'm going edge. If there's sand, more touch because it's more of a subtle, softer fluorocarbon. Next technique, I probably should have done this one after the A-Rig, and I apologize completely on it. But if you're looking to cover water and you don't want to throw a chandelier, there's actually two baits that you can throw on those flats that are really good. First one that I started dabbling with last fall is a Strike King 5XD. I'm not a big crankbait guy. I like chatterbaits when I'm largemouth fishing. So I was like, how can I transition from largemouth to fall smallmouth on a couple bodies of water that I fish, and because they're going to relatively act the same when it comes to fall, they want to feed. So whenever I found bait schools and I didn't have the A-Rig with me because I'm trying out other things, I found just a Sexy Shad 5XC. You'll tell if you look closely, you'll see that I've changed the hooks on them. These are Gamakatsu round bends. Actually, I think the back one is a Kamakatsu and the front one's an Owner ST36, but it's because I ran out and I was like, oh, let's try with the weight balance. So virtually what I want to do with this is I want to dig it into the ground and pause. So it'll come back up and just create all these erratic actions out of it so that you get a reaction strike. Those fish won't need a Ned Rig. They don't want to chase. It could be just another way to get an angry smallmouth to fire on your bait and eat it really well. Colors that I really like in this is the Sexy Shad, Chartreuse Sexy Shad, and then the Keith Combs Special Chartreuse Blueback. Yes, this is a blade bait. We're going to get into that. I just wanted to show the color. So that is what I'm going to be using on flats. So that transition point from they're up, they can go up and feed shallow if it's sunny and some wind, or they might fall off into that deeper water as it keeps getting cooler. But there's a great place for them in the middle range to constantly chase bait, roam, and feed. So to step back here a little bit, in the fall time, one of the first things I start with is going to be the Alabama rig. So I'm fishing that relatively fast because I want to see if fish are covering water. Well, see if I can get bit by covering water. If I'm going to do that, chances are I'm going to throw it all day. If I don't have an A-rig in my boat, the next couple things I'm going to do is crankbait or jerkbait. This is a Megabass Vision Itto 110 plus 1 Junior. You'll notice that this color is perch. GG perch. Pardon me. Reason why I like perch is usually the year the young perch are starting to get a little bit bigger in the fall, and you'll start catching perch on, pardon me, you'll start catching smallmouth that will spit up perch because they're getting to that size that they want to feed on them at. And this is a great mimicker at like 3.5 to 4 inches, just smaller perch. They come up and they're doing the same thing. They're feeding on minnows. So this is a great fall color GG perch. Oh, this one's not OB. I apologize for my scatterbrain. It happens. I think I have really bad ADHD. I haven't been diagnosed with it. So if I start rambling, that is why I turn 19 different directions on any given day. So I completely apologize. So now we're leaving the flats after the Ned Rig, which translates to deep fish. So let's move into the deeper fish. So there's two distinct things that happen on the Great Lakes that I have found is that you have fish that want rock, then you have fish that want sand, and then they go back to rock. So let's talk water temps. For deep fish, to start the fall transition, I look for water temps to start dropping below 65. I think 65 is a great watermark transition because that means the water's already dropped at least 8 to 10 degrees where I'm at in Buffalo. Sandusky, it could be like a 15-degree drop because their water is shallower down there and less current. So on Erie, Buffalo, when that water hits 65, the first thing I think about is finding a group of fish. So when I'm out idling around on some reefs and stuff, from fishing out there over the years, I've learned kind of we'll call it their migratory pattern underwater, because smallmouth are very pelagic and nomadic, but they tend to do the same things when the water shifts. So the first place I look when that water hits 65 degrees is the last remaining barrier rocks. So the last boulder piles before they get to the flats. So we have massive flats on every single Great Lake that is basically nil void of rock. It could be gravel, it could be sand, it could be muck. So using your side scan to figure out what those are is key in learning the migratory patterns of these fish. So when the water gets to 65 degrees, the first things I look for, like I said, is the boulder piles outside of that flat transition area. The biggest bait I'm going to target them with is a drop shot. I hope that I find massive schools. When I'm looking for these, I tend to stay away from single fish when the water gets below 65 degrees because those single fish probably are not going to eat. They're there for a reason. I haven't figured out how to get those fish to bite. I'll be perfectly honest with you. But when I find a group of them, I have found that they tend to be grouped up in size in the fall. So the first fish that you catch in that group that I have found is the most important telltale sign of the day. Either you're going to fish that and keep catching them, you're going to catch 20 to 25 pounds for your best 5, or you're going to catch a bunch of 1 pound, 2 pound rats, and you should probably just leave. So sometimes I'll give them 2 or 3 if I'm seeing bigger marks, because a small one could be mixed in or a big one, but you usually know within the first couple bites that you're there. So the biggest thing that has revolutionized the smallmouth fishing industry, you could call it, right, is the Berkeley Maxsen flatworm. That is the first bait I am always dropping into a school of smallmouth now, because I know that it's going to get bit and it's probably going to get a big bite, especially now that Maxsen, the flatworm Berkeley, has come out with a 4.3 size along with the 3.6. So I'm able now to vary what I'm going to be casting into these fish schools. So if I'm getting small bites, maybe I'll throw in a 4.3 to get that little bit bigger bite. And if not, I'm probably going to leave. Now that's on a slick, calm day. If I have a little bit of wind when I'm side scanning around and I mark the fish, I'm going to put a couple waypoints on those fish, and I'm going to line up with the wind to drift past them. That's where the heavy Ned Rig comes into play that I put a video out on a few weeks ago. Or now we start transitioning back into a little owner football head with a spark shed or a 3.3 or a 2.8 Kitech. You can pick your poison on that. That is a great bait to just cover water and to come through there, because those fish are grouped up for a reason on those outer boulder reefs. And that's because they're looking for food. Once that water hits 65 degrees, I believe the fish hit a light switch and they go, you know what? It's time to start eating. That water's dropped 10 degrees. It's not an anomaly. Winter's coming. It's time to start bulking up. And this is usually when you start to see the fish put on a little bit of weight and to start getting bigger. So that's my first key, is when that water drops. I love going to a swim bait. So now let's kind of climb down the water ladder. From 65 to 55 degrees, I fish it the same exact way. Once that water hits 55, I need to know where that next transition point is for those fish, which is going to be that gravel flat or a sand flat or a muck flat, depending on how the fish set up on your Great Lake. So when I get to that point, the biggest bait that I like to use and get bit on once that water hits 55 degrees is going to be a fish sense lure Binksky. So there's 4 different colors that you can use. They're all great. My favorite is Sexy Shad. Second favorite is the Chartreuse Blue Back when it's cloudy, a little dingier water. If it's bright, sunny, I'm going to go straight silver with a little bit of chop. I just don't know why I think that gets the best bites when it's straight sunny. And then when it's got a variable cloudy sky and actually no wind to a very light wind, I'll go gold. I find gold is a very effective color for catching smallmouth on those variable sun to cloud days. So like clouds, and then you have a little bit of sun, and then the clouds. I just think gold reflects light really well. I would love, if anybody knows out there, if you can find a blade bait that's half gold, half silver. So it's like gold plated on one side, silver on the other. I think that'd be a really cool thing to try out, because it's kind of the best of both worlds. So reach out to me if you do know. Apologize about my rambles. Next, if you're a jigging spoon guy, it's not my favorite technique in the world. Once that water hits that 55-degree mark, a jigging spoon can be really fun to crack some giants on. I've seen a couple people do it. I have not personally had that chance yet because I'm too busy ripping a blade bait. Next, while I was talking about drifting over the rock piles with a swim bait, this can be very effective when drifting over these expensive flats. Drift baits. Swim baits are big bite getters. They just get bit for whatever reason from that 65 to 55, 55 to 45 water temp zone. It doesn't get a ton of bites. You can play around with size. You can go from a 3-inch spark shad up to like a 4.3 Kitech or 4.25 striking rage tail swimmer. They all get bit basically the same way. It's just all personal preference. Colors, AU, white, anything that's shad, a little bit of purple, light hitch, they are all great colors. And you're probably going to get a lot of bites on them. So don't be afraid. Now, rods that I use for the Binksky, I'm going to use a 7-foot medium or 7'2". Some people like a 6'10". I want something that's a medium, fast action with a moderate bend through the middle of the blank. So when I hit them with that blade, I don't have to worry about pulling the hooks out because the rod is soft enough to absorb that hook set. Next, with the swim bait, I'm actually going to use the same exact rod that I fish my blade baits with. So I have a couple of them in the boat, 10-pound fluorocarbon. I just feel like I don't lose fish with it. It's a really good setup. If anybody wants me to do a blade bait video, don't hesitate to ask. That's something I look forward to doing. It's not a ton of bite getters, but when it's on, and because you can't keep them off your line. Next, on that same sand situation, um, we've talked about this quite a few times, was the win that me and Destin had last fall on Lake Erie out of Buffalo, where we had just over 29 pounds. We had one fish on a blade bait. The rest of them came on the Berkeley Maxsen flatworms. So a drop shot on those big, expansive, deep flats where the fish are just out there feeding, a drop shot can be a tool that'll get you really, really big bites. It's all about finding fish and dropping on them. I find casting to them on these expansive flats doesn't work nearly as well as dropping on them or pitching to them. So you want to, if you see them on your 2D or side scan, kind of put a waypoint on those fish instead of marking, let's call it a boulder pile. You're basically marking a fish pile. They move quite a bit, but you can kind of keep them in tune if you're idling by and you see some. Throw a waypoint on real fast, turn the boat, and cast to them. 15, 20, 30 feet away from the boat. I feel like they don't get that scared from the boat, and you can catch them pretty good that way. Okay, so next, let's get into that 45-degree water range, which can be fun. From 45 to 35 degrees. There's only two baits you need at that point: drop shot and a Ned Rig. You can go light Ned, you can go heavy Ned. I'm going to be using the same bait, but when it gets down to that cold, I actually will switch to a minnow style bait as well. So like the Berkeley Maxsen flat nose minnow or a Berkeley gulp minnow works really well. Usually when the water temp gets to be that cold, some things start happening. In Buffalo, we have a gale season. So what a gale is, you're going to get sustained winds of 35 to 45 with gusts of 60 to 70 that will last for 8 to 10 hours. So it's like a mini hurricane coming across the lake. So what happens is the lake gets all chalked up in mud. So we only get a couple days in this water temp frame every year. The water will be kind of dingy, off slate gray, green, but it can be a highly effective time to go out and just catch sheer numbers of fish because they know they only have a day or two before the next windstorm comes in. So like I said, minnow baits, the same drop shots up, 7'2" Kamara or your favorite drop shot rod, anything in that 6'10" to 7'2" range. Usually the water depth that I'm going to be targeting is anywhere from 25 to 45 rock piles. So they tend to leave the sand or gravel or mud areas that transition flat for that mid-range water temp, and then they go back to rock to winter. So you want to have instant deep water accessibility, so 50, 60 foot of water very close by for these fish to go out and winter in once that water gets below 38. So if you know where to find rock close to those wintering holes in that time of year, you're probably going to get a ton of bites. Another alternative mention that I could say here is a bait that I don't fish a ton, and I'm very guilty of being non-cognizant of it. I have a ton of them. Is a tube. For whatever reason, a tube gets really big bites in the fall. I just can't keep it in my hand because I know I'm going to get bit faster and more frequently on other baits. Now, so that is kind of like how Great Lakes setups. Now, next thing you have is river systems that come off of every Great Lake. So like the St. Clair River, Detroit River, we have the Niagara River here in Buffalo. So I'll kind of walk through the Niagara River now and what baits I use and when. So right now our water temp is around 70 degrees. So we're not quite into the fall transition yet. So what we're doing now is we're looking for fish that are moving. They know it's happening from that deep water wintering hole, deep summer water to the shallow feeding areas. Because every fall you're going to have fish that move from the deep to shallow, then back out deep. And river systems are huge for this because the bait will get up there shallow in the sun, and the smallies will just come in and follow and just wolfgang them. So I'll start off with it. The first lure I always pick up when that transition starts happening and the water starts falling is an Alabama rig. And once again, I give credit to my good buddy Justin Warner for really getting me on this after he smoked me a couple times with it. I was like, I'm not getting smoked anymore. It's still something I'm not very great at fishing, but it gets a ton of bites. The A rig, just about anywhere on any river system in the Great Lakes, I guarantee you're going to get bit on. I tend to go a little bit heavier with the weight on these river systems, but I'll go down in line size to cut through the current a little bit faster. 20-pound can get dragging really bad, so I'll actually go to like a 17. Um, all 1/8 ounce heads. Sometimes I'll run 3/16 on the top to kind of balance it out. So to give you an idea, the top two will be 3/16. The middle one will be 3/16, so it kind of lays flat, and then the bottom two will be an 1/8. That I'll run my 2.8s on the top two, and then your teaser in the middle or your middle tag will have a 3.3, and then the bottom two will be a 3.3. Or sometimes you can do like a 4.3 in the middle, and all of them 3.3s or 3.8s. So play around with it. Guarantee you will get bit with it. It's a great way to cover water. I'm using it on the same rod, 7'7" Phoenix Maxim, and the same reel, 7.2 or 6.3 or 6.8, whatever you like. They all work great. Just find the cadence that works for you. In the river system, I do like a little bit quicker of a reel because they'll eat it and get in that current, and you really got to catch up to them before you hit them. Otherwise, you're going to lose every fish that bites. Next river system favorite bait to use in that time of year is going to be a drop shot. Once that water gets from 65 to 55, I'm still throwing the A rig first. If the bite is tough on the A rig, I might throw a jerk bait or the 5XD, depending on how deep I'm fishing. 8 to 12 foot. Jerk bait is a great player too in the fall, but I like to go to a drop shot. But my bait is going to change in a river system. I'm going to go from a flatworm to like a spark shad or a kayak or a hasdong shad because I'm casting it and dragging it to the boat, kind of giving it a little slack and then picking up and checking it. So as you're checking that bait and pulling it towards you, that little tail is just flickering. And the goal is I like to do this when I know there's bait fish around because I'm going to be able to hover it just a little bit below that bait fish. So when that smallie comes up off the bottom, that's going to be his first target. Next, once the water gets below, let's call it 50 degrees, because I don't like to fish river systems once it's below 45. The bite gets really tough at 42. So from 42 to 50 degrees, I start to put the A-rig away. Don't ask me why. I just found last fall that they don't eat it once it gets to a certain point, and I go to a single swim bait, sometimes an underspin. And for whatever reason, you'll catch small fish on the A rig, but the big ones will start transitioning to single bait fish. And I haven't figured out why that is, but it worked for me last fall. And I ended up catching, I think in November, it was like, it might have been the first week of December. The water temp was 39 to 42 once the sun came out, so surface temp. I was just slow rolling a swim bait, and they would short strike it because I couldn't get them to eat the A rig. So I went to an underspin, and I'm taking that underspin on the bottom, and I would just pop it every once in a while. And the same rod that I fish my blade bait on, and what I'm dragging the swim bait is 724 DXC, so it's a Douglas X Matrix 724. It's like a medium moderate rod. When they eat that underspin, what I found was they would just push it. So it's not a big thump, but as you're reeling, it almost feel like you're just reeling it off the side of a cliff. Your line would just get slack because they would eat it and run at you with it. And I found the best way to hook them really good was to reel down as fast as you can and just lean. Because if I set the hook on them, I pulled it right out of their mouth because I'm using a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 ounce underspin on 12, 14-pound test. So just tick in the bottom with it and shake. And You could use like a fluke style bait. I personally like a kayak, something that's super slender head. You're gonna pull that kayak on there, a 3.8 or a 4.3, because you're specifically targeting the biggest fish that want to eat. I find upsizing my bait when the water gets cooler, I actually get more bites because it draws those bigger fish to it. So that's basically where I go. And then once the winter times come, I tend to leave my river and I go back out into the lake for the last couple times in that deep water transition zone to wintering areas. So deep rock to wintering areas just to try to get a few more fish before the season ends. Um, I know this is a relatively short podcast today, about just called over a half hour. I hope everybody enjoyed just the lures and techniques and rods. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to me personally. You can reach out to the Serious Angler page. Me or Bailey responds. You can even reach out to Deacon. But as of now, it's Friday morning that you guys are listening to this. Deacon and Bailey are up at the Thousand Islands blasting off for day 2, their final day as co-anglers in the last Northern Bassmaster Open of the year. I want to wish those guys the best of luck. I hope they both crack them tomorrow, get over that 12 to 13 pound range, and hopefully they can both walk out of there with a nice check. And for now, guys, I just want to say thank you always for listening. If you are listening on the Apple Podcast, please leave comments and reviews. That helps our podcast get found quicker. If you're tuning in on YouTube, please like and share and comment. Let us know what you want to see, especially me. I love filming techniques that I'm doing. I'm an open book. I'm here to teach. I'm here to help. That's one of the main reasons why I got into guiding, is because I enjoy watching people catch their first smallmouth, their biggest smallmouth, learning a new technique. I'm still learning myself, but with the help of everybody here, um, you can help us grow even more. So we're always extremely appreciative of it. And I also want to give a shout out currently to all of our sponsors, Queen Tackle, which all these podcasts are presented by, but all the partners who actually help us out. Um, Morgan Marine with Bailey in the kayak, Hobie Eyewear, best sunglasses in the business, Amp batteries, lithium, great prices, Lure Lock. Can't say enough about them to this point. AFTCO keeping us dry, and outdoorsman coffee to wake us up in the morning as we head out to the lake. So for now, everybody, I hope everybody gets out this weekend and cracks them. And please tag us and share your successes, and we'll share it with you. For now, see you guys Monday.